Love after 60. Men will beg to marry you when you do this. Marriage secret revealed. Welcome, my dear friend, to the Success Mindset. I'm so grateful you're here with me today. They say a man may fall in love with your smile, with your kindness, or even with the way you make his favorite soup on a quiet evening. But the truth is, a man only truly longs to commit his life, his loyalty, and his heart to the woman who touches something much deeper within him. Not the surface, not the fleeting charms of youth or beauty, not the way she fits into some outdated picture of wife material, but something eternal. What makes a man think of forever is presence, that quiet, magnetic self-assurance that no clever technique or performance can replicate. It is the kind of presence that only time, resilience, and life experience can give. And if there is one lesson I have learned through years of listening, observing, and living, it is this: love after 60 is not only possible, it is its own kind of magic. When we reach our golden years, the rules of love change. The dance looks familiar, but the rhythm is different. Older men, those in their 60s and 70s, are no longer searching for someone to make them feel young again, nor are they hunting for a partner who will simply fill a void. Instead, they are looking for something more profound. They are seeking a woman who makes them feel fully themselves, a woman who invites them to stop performing, to shed the armor they've worn for decades, and to finally rest in the comfort of being seen as they are. This is why the most powerful advice I can give about love in this stage of life is not about chasing or impressing. It is not about trying to play games or fit into an image of desirability. The real secret is about becoming the woman who knows her worth, becoming the woman whose inner richness is undeniable, becoming the woman who inspires not with effort but with ease. In senior romance, the women who awaken a man's deepest devotion are the ones who know who they truly are and who embrace that with grace. You see, while younger women may still be in the process of discovering themselves, testing their identities, measuring themselves against others, and trying to prove their value, you, at this stage, have already earned your wisdom. You've lived through joys and heartbreaks, triumphs and losses. You've carried responsibilities, nurtured families, built friendships, pursued dreams, and endured disappointments. All of this has refined you into someone far more compelling than you may realize. And when you share yourself with a calmness that only experience can bring, you awaken something in a man that he did not even know he was waiting for. You stir within him a longing, not for youth or beauty, but for safety, admiration, and emotional connection that goes beyond the surface. That is why today I want to share with you the 5 irresistible traits that separate the women men marry from those they merely date. These are not tricks or tactics. They are ways of being that speak directly to a man's heart, create lasting attraction, and establish the kind of belonging that cannot be found anywhere else. But before we step into those 5 traits, I want to pause for just a moment. If something you hear today touches your heart, I would love for you to subscribe to Wise Life After 60 and pass this along to a friend who might need a little spark of hope in her own love story. Because while romance after 60 is different, it is not less. It is more grounded, more meaningful, and more rewarding when you know how to nurture it. And now, let us begin with the first trait, a quality that may surprise you with its quiet power. Trait number 1. Stop needing him. Start making him prove himself. One of the most irresistible traits a woman can carry into her golden years is the quiet, unshakable confidence to stop needing a man, and instead allow him the privilege to prove himself worthy of her life. For many women, this idea feels almost radical at first. After all, so many of us were raised in a time when women were encouraged, even expected, to please, to adapt, to sacrifice, to earn a man's affection by giving more of ourselves than we received in return. We were taught that our value depended on his approval, on whether he chose us, on whether he provided, protected, and ultimately committed. But something powerful happens when you flip that script. When you stop orienting your worth around his attention and instead recognize the richness of your own life, the entire dynamic changes, often without you having to say a single word. Men over 60, just like men at any age, are instinctively drawn to women who are whole within themselves. Yes, they may enjoy being admired. Yes, they may welcome thoughtful gestures. But deep inside, what they respect most is a woman who is already living a rich, meaningful life, a woman whose world is already full of purpose, joy, and self-respect. And here's the key: this is not about playing hard to get. It's not about pretending to be busy or acting uninterested. That is just performance, and performance eventually fades. What I'm talking about is much deeper. It is about truly believing in your bones that your worth is not dependent on whether he calls, whether he chooses you, or whether he commits. It is about knowing, beyond doubt, that you are already whole. That certainty radiates outward. It shows up in the way you move, the way you listen, the way you occupy a room. It shows up in the way you set boundaries, not with anger, but with calm authority. And that, my friend, is magnetic. I remember meeting a widow in her late 60s at a small dinner gathering. She was elegant, witty, and had a calm strength about her that immediately drew people in. Over the meal, she told me about a gentleman she had been seeing for a few months. He had begun suggesting that they move in together. She smiled as she recalled her answer to him. With a gentle confidence, she said, "I like my life as it is. Show me why it would be even better with you in it." Notice her words. There was no sharpness in her tone, no hint of manipulation, no hidden test. It was simply the truth, spoken from a place of calm self-assurance. She knew she was already complete, and that any relationship would need to add to her life rather than try to fill an empty space. And the result? Exactly what you might imagine. He became more intentional, more attentive, more eager to show her that he truly belonged by her side. Why? Because her wholeness drew out the best in him. She didn't demand it. She inspired it. This is what happens when you live with happiness, confidence, and purpose. Whether that joy comes from friendships, hobbies, family, or the quiet contentment of your own company. You begin to carry a grace that cannot be faked. You are no longer grasping for his attention because your joy is not dependent on it. You can love freely without clinging, and you can give generously without fear of losing yourself. To a man who is truly ready for senior romance, that is irresistible. It sends a clear message: I am with you because I want to be, not because I have to be. And when he senses that you are whole, with or without him, something fascinating happens. Instead of pulling away, he draws closer. Instead of retreating, he leans in. He begins to feel an almost instinctive desire to prove himself worthy, not because you demanded it, but because he wants to rise to meet the respect you naturally command. And here is where the beauty of this first trait deepens. When a man sees that your happiness is not tethered to him, he begins to feel admiration as well as attraction. He realizes that he is not just another piece of your life. but that he must earn the right to be part of the story you are writing for yourself. This is not manipulation. This is not a game. This is the natural pull of self-respect. And when respect takes root, something remarkable begins to unfold. He starts to show you a side of himself that most people will never see. He wants to share his thoughts, his fears, his longings. He wants to open the doors that have long been closed because suddenly he feels safe enough to do so. And it is in this space, this sacred space of openness, that the second irresistible trait begins to quietly take hold. Trait number 2, make him feel deeply valued for who he is. There comes a point in every relationship when the surface falls away. The laughter is still there. The companionship is real. But what matters most is whether you can see the person beyond the roles, beyond the achievements, beyond the history he carries. This is where so many relationships falter, because while admiration is common, true recognition is rare. Yet when you make a man feel deeply valued for who he is at his very core, not for what he can give you, not for how he can impress you, not for the image he projects to the world, but for the man he is, you step into a part of his heart that almost no one else ever reaches. And once you enter that space, you hold something sacred. Men in their 60s and 70s often carry decades of being praised, noticed, or acknowledged for what they do. Their careers, their ability to provide, their public successes, all of these things may be honorable, but they also become a kind of armor. Over the years, that armor can grow heavy, hiding the smaller, more tender truths of who they really are. And here's the secret. Beneath that armor is where his true essence lies. Beneath the accomplishments are the quiet acts of kindness. Beneath the public image are his private values, his sense of integrity, the way he treats a stranger, the way he honors his word. These are the parts of him that are rarely noticed, yet desperately long to be seen. And when you recognize them, when you look past the armor and see the soul, something extraordinary happens. It is as if a light turns on in a room he thought no one would ever enter. When you make a man feel deeply valued for who he is, rather than for what he provides or achieves, you create a connection that bypasses the superficial and moves directly into the sacred. It is in this kind of recognition that the roots of real intimacy begin to grow. The ancient philosopher Epictetus once remarked that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. And how true that is, especially in love. To listen deeply is not simply to register words, it is to hear the essence of the person speaking. When you reflect back to him the qualities you perceive beneath the surface, you are telling him, without ever having to say it directly, I see you. I value you. Not for the mask you wear, not for the role you play, but for the soul you carry. That kind of recognition is rare, and when a man feels it, he cannot help but want to bring more of himself into the relationship. He becomes more open, more invested, more present. You are no longer merely a companion he enjoys spending time with. You become the trusted keeper of his innermost truth. That trust is powerful, and it is the very trust that often makes him start to imagine a future with you. Not because you persuaded him or demanded commitment, but because you gave him something that no one else had, a place where he could finally be known. Perhaps you have experienced this yourself, someone looking past your surface, past the roles you've filled and the titles you've held, and truly valuing the essence of who you are. Do you remember how it felt? Did it shift the way you saw yourself? Did it make you want to rise higher, to give more, to reveal more? When you offer that same gift to a man in his later years, you unlock something profound within him. You give him the courage to lay aside the shields he has carried for decades. And when that happens, when he feels not only respected, but deeply seen, it paves the way for something even more intimate, the unshakable sense that with you, he is truly safe. This leads us to the third irresistible trait, one that may be the very foundation of lasting love in our golden years, becoming his emotional safe place. Have you ever known someone in whose presence you felt so completely accepted, so deeply understood, that you could share the parts of yourself you had kept hidden for years? If you have, then you know how rare such a gift is. And for a man, especially a man who has lived through 60 or 70 years of being told to be strong, to hold it together, to carry burdens silently, this kind of sanctuary can be life-changing. When he finds that safety with you, the connection deepens in a way nothing else can replace. Being a safe place for someone is not the same as being pleasant company. Pleasantness smiles, agrees, and avoids conflict. Safety runs deeper. Safety is the quiet knowing that he can lay down the weight he has carried for years and still be met with love. It is the assurance that he can reveal not only his strengths, but also his vulnerabilities without fear of being judged, dismissed, or belittled. I once spoke with a woman who had remarried in her early 70s, and she told me a story that has stayed with me ever since. One evening, her husband, a retired engineer, came home unusually quiet. During dinner, she noticed he seemed distracted, almost withdrawn. Instead of pressing him with questions or demanding explanations, she simply reached across the table, touched his hand, and said softly, "You don't have to tell me anything right now. Just know that I am here." Later that night, he confessed something he had never shared with anyone. He was afraid of his declining health, afraid of becoming a burden. She didn't rush to fix his fears or tell him they were unfounded. She didn't minimize them. She simply listened, held his gaze, and let him know she understood. From that night forward, he began to open up to her about things he had locked away for decades. That is what it means to be someone's emotional safe place. This kind of love is not about avoiding disagreements or pretending everything is perfect. True safety means you can disagree and still feel secure together. It is built in the way you respond when he admits a mistake, the patience you show when frustration spills over, and the grace you offer when he reveals a hidden fear. Each of these small, consistent acts speaks volumes. They whisper to him, "All of you is welcome here, even the parts you don't show anyone else." The poet Rumi once wrote that the wound is the place where the light enters you. When a man trusts you with his wounds, he is not merely giving you information. He is entrusting you with pieces of his soul. And once that trust is established, it becomes the foundation for a bond that feels unbreakable. When you are his emotional safe place, he doesn't just see you as a partner, he sees you as home. And it is from that sense of home that something even more inspiring can grow. The desire to rise to meet the purpose and passion he sees in you. This brings us to the fourth irresistible trait, one that may be the most magnetic of all. To inspire a man through your own purpose-driven life is to carry a kind of magnetism that no charm or tactic can duplicate. A woman who wakes each day with clarity, energy, and passion radiates an energy that is contagious. You can hear it in her voice, see it in the way she moves, and feel it in the light that shines in her eyes. For a man in the later chapters of life, this is not merely attractive, it is transformative. It reminds him that even now, even after decades of routine and responsibility, life is still abundant with possibility. Purpose reignites his own sense of hope. And purpose does not have to mean grand achievements or world-changing missions. Sometimes purpose is as simple as the peace you find in your garden, the joy you take in your art, the pride you feel in mentoring the younger generation, or the curiosity that drives you to learn something new. What matters is not the scale of your purpose, but the authenticity of it. It is the fact that you are living each day with meaning, fueled by something that is entirely your own. That energy is magnetic. Lao Tzu once said that when you are content to be simply yourself and do not compare or compete, everyone will respect you. This is the essence of purpose, not living for approval, but living from an inner source of joy. When a man sees this, something remarkable happens. He begins to feel invited, not pressured, not demanded, but invited into your world. He becomes curious about what excites you. He begins to ask questions. He feels honored when you choose to share pieces of that world with him. And paradoxically, the more you live fully in your own purpose, the more deeply he wants to be part of it. Purpose changes the dynamic of a relationship in ways that words can hardly capture. Instead of making him the center of your world, you extend an invitation for him to join a life already rich and full of meaning. And that invitation feels far lighter, far more inspiring than the unspoken pressure of being someone's sole source of happiness. Without demanding it, you inspire growth in him. You hold up a mirror that reflects his own potential. He may rediscover passions he once set aside, dust off dreams he had abandoned, or simply approach life with more intention because of the energy you carry. That is the quiet but undeniable power of purpose-driven living. And yet, as powerful as purpose is, it must be balanced with something equally vital: the ability to love generously without losing yourself. This is the fifth and final irresistible trait, and perhaps the one that binds all the others together. I once knew a woman named Clara, in her late 60s, whose love story beautifully illustrates this truth. Clara had a smile that made everyone feel like they had known her forever. She loved her partner with a warmth that could not be mistaken. She remembered the small details of his life, celebrated his triumphs, comforted his sorrows, and supported his dreams. She cooked his favorite meals, left notes in his pockets, and held his hand with a tenderness that spoke volumes. But here was the secret to her magic. She never disappeared into her love. She never lost herself in it. Clara still went to her art class every Thursday. She still traveled with her friends on weekends. She still cherished the quiet mornings on her porch with tea, rituals that had long been part of her soul. Her partner adored her, not only for the way she loved him, but for the way she continued to honor the woman she had always been. This is the essence of loving generously without losing yourself. It does not mean withholding or keeping walls up. It does not mean guarding your heart so fiercely that love cannot flow. Instead, it means building a love on such a strong foundation of selfhood that you can give freely without draining yourself dry. When a man feels your love flowing from a place of wholeness rather than need, it becomes a love he can trust. It doesn't suffocate, it doesn't cling, it doesn't demand constant reassurance. Instead, it breathes. It gives him space to be himself, while still knowing he is deeply cherished. Clara once said something that has stayed with me ever since. I want him to feel like I am a gift in his life, not a replacement for his life. That is the heart of this final trait. When you can love someone deeply while still honoring your own rhythms, passions, and identity, you teach him a new kind of love. A love that is deep without being consuming, a love that is close without erasing individuality, a love that grows not by merging into one, but by choosing, day after day, to walk side by side as two complete people. In our earlier years, many of us were taught that true love meant merging entirely, sacrificing our own dreams and building one single identity. But as we grow older, we discover that the beauty of love lies not in losing ourselves, but in finding someone with whom we can be fully ourselves. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry once wrote that love does not consist in gazing at each other, but in looking outward together in the same direction. Clara embodied that truth without even realizing it. Her love was strong because it had roots in her own life, and those roots gave her relationship the nourishment it needed to flourish. When you love generously without losing yourself, you become both sanctuary and inspiration. He knows your heart belongs to him, but he also knows you belong to yourself. And that paradox is what makes him want to hold on to you for the rest of his life. So, when I look at these 5 traits together, I do not see strategies or tricks to win a man's affection. I see ways of being that allow you to show up as the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. And in doing so, you naturally create the conditions for a love that is not only lasting, but transformative. When you stop needing him and allow him the opportunity to prove himself, you step into a strength that commands respect. When you make him feel valued for who he truly is, you reach into a place within him that almost no one else has touched. When you become his emotional safe place, you offer him a sanctuary he has quietly longed for his entire life. When you inspire him through your own purpose-driven life, you awaken the spark of possibility in his own. And when you love generously without losing yourself, you create a love that breathes, that evolves, that endures. Love after 60 is not about recreating the passion of youth. It is about creating something richer, wiser, and infinitely more real. It is about arriving at this stage of life without pretense, without competition, without the exhausting chase. It is about knowing that you have lived, you have learned, and now you can love from a place of choice rather than need. And here is the most beautiful truth of all. The right man will not just admire these qualities in you. He will rise to meet them. He will be inspired to cherish, to protect, to commit. Not because you demanded it, but because you became the kind of woman he cannot imagine his life without. So, keep your heart open and your spirit steady. Trust in the wisdom you have earned and the presence you now embody. Let both guide you toward the love you not only desire, but truly deserve. And if you felt a spark of recognition in these words, I invite you to join me again by subscribing to Wise Life After 60, so that together we can continue exploring the truths, the surprises, and the quiet joys of building lasting love in our golden years. Because this chapter of life is not the end of romance, it is the beginning of something deeper, more profound, and more beautiful than ever before.